Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Get Geek podcast, where we celebrate geek, nerd, and pop culture. Each week, we deliver the best analysis for fans, by fans, on anything related to movies, TV, video games, comics, anime, and manga. We talk geek. And now, here's the Get Geek podcast.
Hello, Internet. Welcome to another episode of the Get Geek podcast. What's going on from the crew over here? Let's do introductions. I'm Jose.
AJ.
ER.
And as always, this is Walt.
So the crew is here with you today. As always, as you know, recording remotely, we're trying to stay as safe as possible. So we just wanted to make a disclaimer about that. If there's any audio issues or artifacts, as we've said before, we think we've ironed them out. We think we're doing a pretty good job of getting rid of any sound issues or artifacts for recording remotely. So, yeah, if there's any issues with that, please give us some feedback. And, of course, we welcome all kinds of feedback. On the note of feedback, if you want to support your favorite podcast crew, the Get Geek crew, please like, rate, share, and subscribe to our podcast. You can find it on all of your favorite podcast platforms. Blah, 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 blah. Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, Amazon Music, where all your favorite podcasts are sold. So please support your crew, like, rate, share, and subscribe. Check out our Instagram page. Check out our Twitter at Get Geek Podcast. We have giveaways. We have cool news there. Basically, it's awesome, and you should be following us. So why are you not following us and liking, rating, sharing, and subscribing?
What's your problem, man?
Yeah, dude,
Subscribe.
come on. Don't mess this one up for us, guys. No, kidding. We appreciate all of you who have reached out to us and given us feedback. And by the way, we're on Pandora too as well. We are being added to all of the awesome podcast platforms. So check us out, please. Like, rate, share, subscribe. Let people know you like the show. That's the best way, as always, to support your favorite podcast crew, the Get Geek crew. So yeah, today we have a couple of big topics. One, obviously, we've been basically geeking out about for the last few weeks ever since it has returned. That's season 2 of The Mandalorian. We're going to talk chapter 14 today. Chapter 14, The Tragedy. Really big episode, really important episode, and we have a lot to say about it. But first, and I want to get your guys' opinion on this. Let's jump right into it. There was some big news for us streaming nerds, for streaming services, and for movie theaters that are going to have huge, absolutely, in my opinion at least, huge repercussions for how things are going to go forward with movie theater releases going forward, even if this doesn't happen. And that news is that HBO Max is going to release every single Warner Brothers movie that's coming to the theaters in 2021. Now, for reference, that includes, starting with, actually in 2020, Wonder Woman 84, which comes out on Christmas Day. If I'm saying that's the Christmas Day it comes out, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yep.
So that's coming out on Christmas Day on HBO Max and in theaters simultaneously on HBO Max at no extra cost. So if you have an HBO Max subscription, you get Wonder Woman 1984 and 21 other WB movies that are coming out in 2021. I think it's 21, right? That includes Dune. That includes The Matrix 4. That includes Godzilla vs. Kong. I mean, it's massive, massive, massive news. I don't know if it's good. I don't know if it's bad. I mean, it's pretty awesome if you have HBO Max to get access to all things WB, especially if you're a DC nerd or a nerd of Godzilla or a nerd of, well, just about anything. They're releasing so many big geek movies coming out in 2021. So yeah, let's get opinions on that, because I think it's pretty huge. AJ, can you give your opinion? What do you think about this here? Like, is this good for movie theaters, good for HBO, good for nerds? What's your take on this huge news?
To quote a very famous, very, very famous, super duper famous guy from Star Wars,
Yeah.
I'm just going to say this. I got a bad feeling about this.
Wow. Okay. A bad feeling for who, I guess?
There are a couple of layers to this. So
Hmm.
First of all, everything moving to HBO. You're kind of setting up like with movie theaters, you go in once, you see it, awesome. But not everyone has I'm not trying to overgeneralize things, but maybe not everyone has HBO Max, and maybe not everyone can afford streaming services, even though movie tickets run around the same price. But I don't know. I don't know. That just seems it just doesn't sit right on that front. And then,
Hmm.
especially when you want to observe metrics, like a lot of the things, because I follow the Godzilla versus Kong movie developments relatively well.
Yeah.
And a lot of what I'm hearing from the fan base is that this is this might be the end of the Godzilla versus the American franchise for the Godzilla movies.
The
Because
MonsterVerse.
without a proper release, how are you gonna determine? Oh well, you know, it's just it's probably gonna be a bad thing because I don't know how they track stuff there, but with movies, you get a very good sense of what the people like.
Well, I have a counterpoint to that,
Hmm.
and I would say that this actually might, in a way, help the MonsterVerse because there are probably a segment of people who aren't into Godzilla that won't go to the movie theater to pay money for it. But now, if it's involved and it's kind of bundled into their HBO Max subscription, it's a lot easier for them to check it out. And if it turns out to be a really good movie, then maybe they go back and see the other movies, and maybe on the next release, uh, maybe they're more
Yeah.
inclined to say, you know what, Godzilla, that last Godzilla was actually a really good movie. I should go
Yeah.
check this out. So there is that also, and they can check how many people are streaming, a show at the same time. So there's both ways to it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
I agree
lose the big
because
yeah, you lose the big box office, but maybe you get more eyes on it that normally wouldn't have seen it.
yeah, that's my thought too. Because well, it's a double edged sword. I think
Oh yeah,
that
definitely.
that's how I see
Yeah.
it. Because to your point about the cost, if you think about it, AJ, the cost actually can be better on HBO Max because let's say you want to see a movie, you get a subscription for a month for $15. I think it's 14.99, and you can
Yes.
see that movie. It's less cost prohibitive than say like you have a family of four. Like taking you guys for example. I mean, when you're going to movies, you're probably spending upwards of $150. I would imagine,
Hmm.
at least, right? 4 tickets, popcorn, soda, like that's a huge cost. That's about 10 times more than what you would spend on getting the movie on HBO Max if you don't include whatever snacks you have for your viewing. So the cost is going to be in a way better for the people who really really want to check out these movies and just can't afford to take their families to the theater or can't afford to go to the theater themselves, which is cool to a certain extent. But
Right.
But then
the,
there's this other issue,
yeah,
like uh,
You will
we're
lose money though. You
yeah,
yeah,
you
that's
will
what I was
lose
going to
money.
say.
That's
That's
definitely
the issue for the
that's
monster
AJ.
verse
To
because they
AJ's
probably
point.
spent 200 million or
Yeah,
something on this movie.
exactly. So to AJ's point, it makes a lot of sense because you're not releasing it in the movie theaters, and it does cost a bunch of money to make these movies. You're not gonna get it back on HBO most likely. The thing that you hope is that you're playing the long game here, and you're providing the content, you know, at a much easier way of consuming it than you would if you did it in the movie theater. So, but in the short term,
Hmm.
um, most of these movies are going to lose money. That I think that's just the
Yeah,
way it
even if
is.
well, they are being released in theaters, right? So
Right.
at the same on the same day that they're being released on HBO Max, of course, their theater release dates are coming out. But people aren't going to go to the movies for a while, like not to the same
So
extent.
so one caveat that we have to mention with the HBO release schedule.
Yeah,
You're if you're thinking that you can get onto HBO Max and see these movies on the trial period, you're
not
not.
happening. Not
yeah,
happening. They got rid
that's
of
going
it
to
just
be,
this month, I think, right?
yeah, they cut that out. So if you do
Just
the
in time
trial,
for
you'll be able to
WW84.
see exactly. If you do the
Hmm.
trial, you're only going to see their back catalog. You're not going to see their new stuff. The other point that needs to be made is that these movies, while they will be released on HBO Max, it's
Yeah.
only on the service for a month. So you have a
Okay.
month to see the movie, and then
Hmm.
it's gone until
Until
you
whenever they
have those.
return
I
it
think it's, what is it, the 90-day window
out of
where
theaters.
yeah,
I believe that's currently somewhere around where the arrangement is. It's not an I
yeah,
think, yeah, it's not an official thing, but it's like kind of like how they have done it for years. I feel like
right.
I think that's
So
correct.
it's not on the service forever, and if you do want to go revisit it, then that's where I guess the theaters would, you know, make that make that accessible for people who want to see it on a repeated, watch after the 1 month period.
Yeah. Okay. So let me ask you, Eli.
Yeah.
Um, do you like the idea of being able to watch all of these movies in the comfort of your own home, or are you kind of going to be upset about this because, I mean, as a family, a lot of times when these big movies come out, all the MCU movies, we saw
Yeah.
Godzilla, oh Lord, what was the name of the movie? The Godzilla King of the Monsters. Excuse me. We all saw that in the
Hmm.
theaters together. So we enjoy going to the theater for the experience of watching it together as a family, and that's something we can do in a house also, sure, or watch parties or other things like that. But I mean, what do you think? Are you excited about being able to watch, you know, Dune and Godzilla versus Kong and all of these movies at home, or are you kind of feeling like this is something where you're going to miss out on the movie experience, or do you not care? What do you think about watching these movies in this way?
I'm kind of I'm kind of mixed here cuz to
Hmm.
me honestly it doesn't really matter as much to me as like any other viewers, but I feel like yeah, Walt's like doing that.
We're kind of fortunate because we have a pretty big screen TV, and we also
Yeah.
have the 5.1 surround sound. So
Right.
we can kind of recreate the movie experience a little bit better than maybe most people. So
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, but like
it
that's the
still
thing.
sucks.
Yeah. AMC and movie theaters like that, like they have a much wider screen and surround sound is like
It's way better than what we can do.
yeah, top tier. So like at
Yep.
the same time, yes, it is better, I guess, to go watch it in the movie theaters from the movie experience. But I
Yeah.
feel like
3D too sometimes.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
but like
Well,
at the same
we can do
time,
3D, but we've just never used it.
but we have 3D.
We have 3D. We have the 3D glasses. I have
Just
3D DVDs, but we've never really used it because it's kind of a pain in the you know what.
Yeah,
So
you need to then. But
you might have to this year. Yeah. Hmm.
we have Godzilla.
So, so yeah. Hmm. So what else? What else were you gonna say, Eli? What was
I
your other points to make?
to me, I like just because to me, I have a little bit more freedom in my house, so I could just like flop flop on the couch and like it. There's gonna be I can do whatever I want
Yeah.
when I
Yeah,
to make myself
you
comfortable
can go to the
inside the house.
bathroom. You
I
can
could go, yeah,
go grab something to eat.
Concessions? Who needs popcorn when you have Totino's pizza rolls?
yes. See, so yeah,
Pizza rolls.
inside a house, it would be a different experience, but at the same time, I think I would like that a lot more. Even, but then
Mm,
again, you can go watch with in person with your family and stuff, and that's a problem. But yeah, you have watch party, but it's not the same thing as actually seeing them,
Yeah,
right?
we've already tried that with Mandalorian. It wasn't the best
Yeah.
experience.
right. They need to work on that quite a bit.
Yes, they do.
I have a lot of things they need to work on Disney
Yeah.
Plus.
Yeah.
Security issues.
Yeah, the app itself is not the best. It's probably one of the weaker mobile streaming apps. So okay, so we're kind of mixed on this whole thing with HBO Max, it seems, because I mean, for me, like, yeah, I'm super excited that I could just sit at home and watch these movies, but we have always had sort of a tradition, and it's going to be weird when like Black Widow or something like that comes out if we can't go see it in the theater. I know Black Widow is, not a WB movie. We're talking about it a little differently here, but there's rumors that it's going to come out on Disney Plus.
Hmm.
And so I wonder, because you look at the model of Mulan on Disney Plus, where they charged money, including the subscription service, in order to allow you to watch this new movie. And now, by the way, Mulan is free on Disney Plus after about a month or so, I think. You don't have to pay for it separately anymore. It's just part of the streaming service and part of your subscription. The live action Mulan, obviously, for anybody who's wondering which one I'm talking about. But does that now become the standard? Does that mean because HBO and HBO Max and WB are not going to charge for these movies, can Disney afford to? Can Disney afford to say like, oh well, HBO is not charging for their theatrical releases on their streaming service, but for us it's $30 for Black Widow, and that's it.
Hmm.
Like, how's that going to change too? There's so many things that I think are going to kind of change in weird ways as a result of that. So I guess we're going to see really what happens with movie theaters,
Yeah.
and with HBO Max. I
Yeah.
mean, it's such a mixed bag. I think you
My
you guys kind of all agree.
yeah, my take on it is a little weird because I look at what WB is trying to do, and listen, you've got to look at the reality of things. We're in the middle of a pandemic right now, and we're actually worse off than we were when we first started back in March and April. And with the holidays coming, things are only going to get worse. That's the way it looks like. It's trending upwards, and it's not only a matter of safety, it's economics, because there's a lot of people, because of the pandemic, that have not um have lost their jobs, and
Yep.
it does look like we're not getting, at least in the US, the stimulus thing is pretty much a disaster on all fronts. It's become a very bipartisan fight for that.
There
um
is some hope that I've heard recently. There's some hope that they're going to release a very, very, very
right.
pared back version, which will only include, I believe, extended $300 for
Hmm.
unemployment. It's going to extend that again, and I think it's going to have a very, very small, which drives me crazy, a very, very small paycheck protection aspect to it to help small businesses.
Which the first
Horrible,
iteration didn't do anything. I mean,
not
we can
much.
cite instances of large corporations getting it, but the actual small business not
Gets
getting it.
nothing.
So that's why I
Didn't Tom
say
Brady get almost $1 million for his
exactly.
business, for
And
TB12, for his
yep.
fitness business?
And so
Tom Brady ain't crying.
that's why I say the response is a disaster. I know we're moving off of the topic and getting into politics, which we really shouldn't.
It
But
relates though. It definitely
it
relates
does.
because
And
for small movie theaters, small business owners, for people who just, or I mean, think about it. People who work at these movie theaters, what the heck
exactly.
are they going to do?
Exactly. And so that's why I said, it's a part of it. Um but I understand why WB is doing it, because they rather, you continue to push these movies back, and the excitement for it wanes, because then you're going to create a backlog on the backside of things. um so there is a reason why they're doing it. Now, for me, the whole thing about it is that um I actually, I'm mixed just like everybody else here, because like I said, we're pretty fortunate that we can kind of try and recreate the movie experience as much as possible.
Hmm.
But you look at some of these movies here, and there is something to be said about being in a movie theater to experience that. And one of the things that I always look at is horror movies. Horror movies is such a totally different experience in the movie theater than probably any other genre out there.
Comedies
um
too. I think
and,
it's
and
similar to
comedies
comedy.
too. Yeah,
It's very
exactly.
much a group experience. Everybody like kind of plays off of each other's laughter or fear in the theater. It's a big thing about the experience.
I remember I went to go see Hereditary in
Yeah.
Williamsburg, right?
Hmm.
And I went with my wife, and we were there, and it was kind of like a midnight showing, but it was the most it was the best experience that I think I've had in a movie theater in a long time. The guy next to me, he when he came in, he literally sat down and said, "Listen, I am apologizing to you now because I might scream like a girl later." You know, and the entire time he was jumping and making all, and it wasn't annoying to me
It's
because
fun.
it was fun, and
It's fun, yeah.
it was the same thing. You got
And he was
the
cool for telling
entire
you that was gonna happen too.
exactly. It was a great communal experience, you know, that you
Yeah.
can't recreate at home.
My best memory recently is like, one of the coolest things that we've ever experienced in a movie theater. Like, and you can go back and think about like another one that I can mention for sure is when we saw the Phantom Menace in '99. Like, what an experience that was. People with lightsabers, people in costume,
Hmm.
people like waving them in the air. Well,
Well,
when
dude,
the movie starts, that
also,
excitement is there. And then just the other one I wanted to mention real quick, that moment in like, say like Endgame, when
yeah,
like
yeah,
say
Yeah.
Captain America wields Mjolnir, or like Captain Marvel shows up. All those moments where people in the crowd, or Spider-Man returning, like those big pop excited moments from the audience
bro.
were so much fun.
Remember when we went to go see Dragon Ball Super? How excited that crowd was! I mean,
Yeah.
people were literally screaming. You know, when you know you had those big moments in that movie. You know,
Yeah.
again,
So
that's
much
something
fun.
you won't be able to recreate anywhere except the movie theater. And
Yeah.
my thing is, AMC is the one that's kind of spearheading this fight. But I also worry about the mom and pops. You know what I'm saying? Because they're really they really do struggle. AMC, at the end of the day,
They'll be
they're
fine.
going to struggle, but they'll be fine. You know what I'm
Yeah, they
saying?
might even like, even to the point of that, like they can much more afford to say like, oh, we're going to file for bankruptcy and close a few theaters, and they'll still operate. They'll
Right.
figure it out and they'll return to some sort of profitable model, so long as people eventually go back to theaters, right? But they're not suffering. The mom and
And
pop theaters are suffering hard right now, and
and
it's a
you
shame.
look at those, you
Or
also look
specialty
at
theaters,
those, yeah, and you also look at those mom and pop theaters. A lot of movie girls, excuse me, a lot of moviegoers go to those mom and pops because they can offer a ticket that's less than
Yeah.
the AMC and the Regals, you know, and the UA theaters and stuff. You can go to one of these mom and pop theaters. I remember there's one by where our parents live
Yeah, Main
on Main
Street.
Street.
Hmm.
They used to
In
do
Queens.
$4 tickets on
I
Tuesdays.
used to go there all the time to see movies there. And
If
there was a
those,
theater
yeah,
like that in Illinois where when I lived there too, it was like $4 or something like that. And I would just go to the movies by myself sometimes even, and just watch
exactly.
a movie for fun, because it was so cool to be able to do that by yourself.
So this not only impacts the movie theater owners, but it also impacts those moviegoers that kind of depend on being able to afford a movie experience on kind of like a budget, you know?
And indie
So
films, what's going to happen to them? They were
I,
already suffering.
yeah, I think indie films are going to suffer the most because the trend, especially lately, has been toward these tentpole blockbuster films, and you know that's what these studios are really focusing on. You know, it's a shame also that Fox kind of went out because Searchlight was putting out some great indie films,
Yeah.
and I don't know if you're going to see that focus with Disney on that end. So
No, it's not as likely. Although the model seems to be more so that indie films are just kind of biting the bullet and saying, just go to streaming. Just
yeah,
they're just releasing on streaming
which is a
services because
shame.
they can make money there too, but maybe not as much. I don't know how that exactly works, but I do feel like they're going to suffer with this.
Yeah.
We'll see though. It's so bittersweet, because it's going to be cool to be able to watch these movies like the day of with no difficulties whatsoever. But the theaters, I'm going to miss them. I am going to miss them, because we have even had thoughts of like renting out a whole theater to see some of the newest movies that have come out.
But
Like renting out a whole AMC theater for like $150 or something.
but
But
nothing has come out. That's the problem. There's no new content because
all we got is Tenant, right?
yeah, and Tenet, which ironically comes out in we're recording this Sunday in afternoon. Tenet
Hmm.
comes out December 15th. So on streaming, you know, on digital. Not
Hmm.
streaming, I'm sorry, on digital. So, you know, that's going to be the way I'm going to watch it. But they tried to put it out on the theaters. It really didn't do that well. People aren't
Nothing did.
comfortable with going to the movie theaters in this climate right now.
No, they're
So
simply not. And let's hope that with recent developments with the vaccine and everything else, that we'll see a recovery. And we're gonna have to see what HBO and WB and AMC decide is best going forward. Because for me, as a final thought, I feel like the deal is gonna change slightly. That's just my thought now. Let's see what happens with AMC. I don't think it's gonna be a huge change, but we'll see. I guess we'll see what ends up happening on this front. Because again,
yep.
big news. But we got some bigger stuff to talk about this week. Well, maybe not bigger, but more immediate big stuff to talk about this week. We got the Mandalorian Chapter 14, The Tragedy, to speak about. And I'll say, man, when I saw that title, I was scared. It's like, what is gonna happen to Grogu or like to other character? Are they gonna kill somebody off? Because remember, last season, in the last few episodes, is where they started killing off some of characters that we really, really wished did not die.
Hmm.
Like Quill is a great example.
Yep.
Quill, I should say, that's how they pronounce his name. So, yeah, guys, this was a pretty big episode. I feel. Um, let's get right into it. Right, so whew, we got off of the big episode last week, the Jedi, where he meets Ahsoka Tano, Din Djarin, and Grogu, whose name we find out for the first time last week, little baby Grogu, baby Yoda the child. They're tasked to go to the planet Tython in order for Grogu to reach out to another Jedi, so one of the remaining Jedi in the universe, and we're going to talk about the remaining Jedi and the implications of that. And see if he wants to be trained and kind of make his choice. You know, does he want to be trained as a Jedi, or does he want to let his powers fade and just, be a normal baby Yoda, not have to be involved in the Force and be involved in these conflicts and all of that. So, yeah, they're on their way to Tython, and we open with a tender little moment with baby Yoda and Din Djarin. It's going to be hard to start calling him Grogu, even though I like the name. What did you guys think of this episode? I guess first off, Eli, what is your sort of basic overall thoughts on this episode? Did you really enjoy it, or did you totally freaking hate it and think that it was the worst episode of The Mandalorian ever?
Uh-oh.
Was it
Yeah.
corny?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. Well, it
There
Uh-oh.
has
was.
to
It
be
was good. It
there
was
has
a
to be some corn in there, right?
yeah.
If there was anything corny, what was it?
It was for
Spoilers, by
me.
the way,
Yeah.
Yeah,
everybody.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
spoilers. We're entering
Yeah.
into spoiler territory. So, what
It
was
was.
corny?
I know this is gonna sound bad, but it was a little bit too dramatic with Boba. I'm just saying,
What aspects of it? Like,
What part?
like
what part of it? Yeah.
it's just like when you overdo a cool factor, you overdo the cool factor for a character. It
Hmm.
just seems really just like they're overdoing it.
They're
Okay.
really pushing the Boba character.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I felt. But otherwise, I thought it was a great. I thought it was one of the best episodes yet for the season, and yeah, and I did predict it. I did predict stuff. I want to make this point. I predicted it. I
Okay.
predicted it.
Yeah, yeah. So, like, again, spoilers for sure for anybody that hasn't already realized that we're spoiling this episode in our discussion. What prediction did you make this episode that you thought was going to happen that came true?
I predicted that Boba would take Mando under his wing. I said it. I don't know if I said it on this podcast, but I said it.
I believe you. I believe you. You've actually made some great predictions in the past, so I would definitely want to hear more of your predictions on some of these storylines. And like, yeah, so let's talk about that, because that's the biggest moment in this episode, obviously, right, guys? We had the early reveal in the first episode of this season of Tamora Morrison, and we were all basically like, that's got to be Boba Fett, right? But we never got an actual in-show confirmation. We got confirmation in like credits on IMDb and all that stuff, but we never found out that it was Boba Fett. This week, we found out for sure that it was Boba Fett. And I just want to say to your point, Eli, and then let's open it up to talking about like the impact of Boba Fett. returning to the Star Wars universe in this way. I'm not going to say one way or another whether I think it was awesome or not, even though I think that will become clear. But yeah, it's pretty clear early on that this is Boba Fett, right? Because the episode, as I said, it kind of opens up with a tender moment between Din Djarin and Grogu, where he's playing with that little silver ball that's on the control panel on the Razor Crest. That's kind of become like a sort of a symbol for their relationship. That little metal ball that Grogu is pretty obsessed with, and then we get baby Grogu to Tython. He puts him on the Seeing Stone so he can reach out to the Jedi, and we have that huge moment that I think most Star Wars fans kind of went insane. We see a ship finally return to the canon. Walt, can you tell us a little bit about what we see in that moment?
We got Slave One, which
Man, what a
was,
moment that was, right?
yeah, everybody. The minute that you saw the ship, I think there was a collective gasp uh, throughout the Star Wars universe. What is it that It was as if a million voices cried out at the same time, right?
And they were not silenced. I
They
saw a
were
little
not
bit of
silenced this
I
time.
saw a little bit of the Star Wars theories reaction. I saw a couple of reaction videos, and like
Oh,
he
really?
just went crazy when he saw Slave One. And yeah,
Yeah.
we all did, right? Because it's been
Hmm.
how long has it been since we've seen this ship? More than 30 years since we've seen Slave One in a Star Wars film,
Yeah,
right?
I mean,
No, you had the
Wait,
slave one in episode 2.
right. I'm
oh
sorry.
yeah,
That's
that's
correct.
true. That's true.
That's true. But that's like almost 20 years since we've seen Slave One in live action, and
Yep.
since we've seen it in the hands of one Boba Fett, right? Like that was pretty huge. What did you like? Did you think that moment was corny, Eli, or was that one of the
No,
moments
no,
that you
no, that
thought
was
was
good.
overblown?
That was good. That was good. Like
That was a
it
cool
would.
way to reveal, right?
Yeah.
So, like for me, just to your point, real quick, Eli, and then like again, I really want to know what you guys think of like how Boba Fett comes back and like his interactions with Din Djarin, his motivations, like compared to what you predicted for him this season. Um, but like for me, I think a big reason why they made it a little corny, quote unquote, is because some fans, including our resident
Yeah.
Boba Fett like super nerd Wolfie, who he isn't able to join us this week. He'll certainly have thoughts in the coming weeks, though. I guarantee that because he was really excited to see Boba Fett.
Yep.
But I mean, for fans of Boba Fett, who the last time you really saw him in what's now considered official canon, he just flew into a Sarlacc pit and died. Like the most feared bounty hunter in the galaxy, kind of like Vader, never showed us truly what a badass that he was in any of the movies. And then Vader, he has his moment in Rogue One. Every
Hmm.
fan loved that, right? In Rogue One, near the end of the movie, where we get to see Vader finally do some really crazy Vader stuff in live action, like be fearful and like crush people and kill people and like toss them into walls. I think fans of Boba Fett, they needed this, because you grew up hearing again Boba Fett is the most feared bounty hunter in the galaxy, and then he gets taken out by a jetpack malfunction, which they just joke about, and like Easter egg when Django kind of dies the same way when his jetpack can't fire, and then he can't get away from Mace Windu, and Mace Windu chops his head off. Right, so it's like
Mhm.
a recurring joke, or it was.
Yeah, we had it the first episode of this season.
Yeah, we even had the first episode of this season because his jetpack malfunctioned when Cobb Vanth kind of smacked it, the jetpack, Boba Fett's
Yep.
jetpack, or excuse me, Cobb Vanth got his jetpack smacked by Din Djarin. Um, so yeah, like fans of Boba Fett really needed to see him demonstrate why he
Yeah.
was the most feared bounty hunter in the galaxy. So that's why like I didn't think it was necessarily corny. I think it was like, and I want to hear what you guys think besides Eli as well. Like I think this moment was a necessity for some big Boba
Yeah.
Fett Star Wars fans. Like they
I
needed
I
this.
agree.
What else? What do you guys think about like Boba Fett's return and reveal? AJ, what did you think about like his motivations and some of the things that he does in this episode to show us how, for lack of a better term, badass he finally has proven himself to be?
Well, it makes sense. I mean, we all really kind of called it last episode. He's really only there for the armor.
Hmm.
And I kind of like how they expanded on the Fett Mandalorian heritage. That
Yes.
was actually pretty boss. Now I can say that Django wasn't just a bounty hunter; he was actually a Mandalorian. So all right, that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And you know what? I've given Boba Fett a lot of how do I put this?
Should we say grief, or is that not the right word?
Yes,
That's
grief,
a very small way
misery,
to say it.
uh, so
Especially
much
we gave him
agony.
so much crap about Boba Fett.
And you know what? After seeing this episode, okay, fine. I'll give you that this person may once upon a time have been one of the best bounty hunters in the known galaxies. But you know what? That also kind of, I still can't get Return of the Jedi that taste out of my mouth, though.
Yeah.
Because while you see all this awesome badassery, you just can't help but remember the last time you saw him where he looked like a complete fool.
Yeah.
And I guess that's going to be my kind of last kind of dissing remark because you know what? I'm not even going to lie. I'm on the Boba boat now.
Yeah.
But I will give you.
Did you just say the boba boat? Are you
Yes,
serious? Oh
I
my
did.
gosh.
But you
Okay.
know what? I still, quite honestly, I still prefer Mando to Boba, but I'm
uh,
not. I'll be clear. He is pretty cool. So fine.
yeah. I mean, to finally see him really, really excel in some sort of combat, because the moments you see in the older movies, I think you mentioned earlier, we both saw The Empire Strikes Back again recently, right?
Yeah.
It's actually cool for me because my girlfriend saw Star Wars and The Empire Strikes Back for the first time ever in the last few days, and she enjoyed them. I'm not going to say she's like a super fan, but when when you watch the old movies, as an adult, it's a little bit of a different experience than us when we saw them as kids, right? But like, you have moments in like The Empire Strikes Back where he's smart enough to realize what Han Solo is doing, and by that I reference Han Solo attaching to the back of the Star Destroyer bridge, and escaping with the garbage, right? Nobody else figured that out. So you had moments where you see how smart Boba Fett is and why he's the feared bounty hunter. But again, then you get Return of the Jedi, and his legacy just got smashed as a result of that.
Yeah.
So it's for me, yeah, like I said, I wasn't like, I'm gonna say this now, but you guys know this is true. I wasn't giving Wolfie or Boba Fett quite as much grief as the rest of the crew. I tried to help out a little bit when it came to those arguments, but it's really good to see for the fandom, at least in my opinion, to see this character reestablished and also find out what the heck happened to him in the Sarlacc pit, because you had different legends canon showing how he escaped and creating these awesome backstories for him. And then when that got wiped out, your Fett fans were just left out in the cold, basically. Right.
Mhm.
So we have that, though, the big, 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 big moments from Boba Fett in this episode. Basically, he lands in Slave One. We find out that another character, and again, we had these theories last season. These theories were out there last season as well. We go back to a character from last season, Fennec Shand, Ming Na Wen's character, returns and is not dead. If you guys remember that moment last season, we all kind of had this as a theory where a hooded, robed figure goes to her dying body and kind of leans down over it. There were definitely thoughts then that it was Boba Fett. And now we got confirmation that it was. What did you guys think of the return of Fennec Shand as a character? Me personally, I'll say I was upset when she died so quickly last season. I'm a fan of Ming Na Wen. I'm a fan of the way that they characterized her in the show. So for me, like, I was actually excited that they found a way to bring the character back. Walt, what did you think about Fett's interactions and the return of Fennec Shand in this episode?
Well, I did like her character coming back because just like you,
Yeah.
um, I'm a fan of the actress. You know, she's been on a number of things. Most recently, for the MCU fans, she was on Agents of Shield as Melinda May. You know, and she plays a badass character there. And so I was excited to see more. And so having her kind of unceremoniously killed off by, that kid last season was kind of a disappointment. So seeing her come back was pretty fun. And you know what? You've now set up this trio, this group that it seems like they're going to be going forward. So it's going to be interesting watching all three of them, and their interplay between them. Now, the implication was that Boba Fett kind of rescued her and gave her, I guess, some implants, right?
Very much like Luke's implant for his hand
Mm-hmm.
in The Empire Strikes Back. The mechanics looked very similar, but it was in her stomach, which was really weird, right?
Yeah, yeah, that was kind of like, what the heck is that? You know, and I guess Boba Fett, aside from being a bounty hunter, is an excellent surgeon here. You know,
Yeah,
so
maybe.
that just adds to his legend,
Or he has some
so to speak.
connections on Tatooine for
Okay,
sure, right?
that's true. Maybe he got some of the Tusken Raiders to, you know, patch her up or something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that I actually can we expand upon that slightly, because I had a theory. I don't know if this theory is now slightly more confirmed, but I had a theory that in chapter 9, the Marshal with Cobb Vanth, that he was actually among the Sand People that were in that fight. I think it's more possible that that's the case right now, right? Because it looks like it's almost. I mean, we don't know this for sure, but it looks like the implication, kind of like what you said, is that the Sand People are probably the ones that nursed him back to health. If they didn't save him, I don't know how he escaped from the Sarlacc pit. I don't think they
Yeah.
saved him
They
necessarily.
never
They
really
haven't
say
mentioned
how.
really.
Right. But it seems like they kind of took him in, right? And like they kind of nursed him back to health. At least that's the idea that I got, because he's now, very much well versed in combat with the gaffy stick. And that was
Listen,
pretty awesome too.
there was a point where he jumped down from one of the higher ledges and
Oh,
came
yeah.
down, and I almost, there was a part of me almost expecting him to take the gaffy stick and just raise it up and start going. you know
Yeah,
it,
dude. Like,
it was like really weird. I was like, no, he's not gonna do it, please don't do it. Thank you, he didn't do it.
that was, but like, I definitely liked Tamora Morrison kind
His
of.
fighting style was awesome.
Well,
His fighting style.
Yeah.
to me, he was the MVP of this episode, not just because he's Boba Fett, but the lines that he was given, the way that he acted him out, and yeah, like his fighting style, which included like kind of his body language and his facial expressions,
Hmm.
actually, because I loved how like angry and vicious he was when he was like basically wiping out stormtroopers and like destroying their helmets with the gaffy stick. The look on
Oh,
his face was so cool with some of those.
those were some of the most brutal things that I think we've seen in Star Wars in quite a
Yeah,
bit. I mean, those helmets were thoroughly smashed.
yo,
You know,
stormtrooper
that
helmets are useless, bro. What the heck?
homeboy, that was just, that
Brutal.
was almost horror movie type stuff.
Yeah, like this the image of that stormtrooper with the smashed helmet after he like wrecked it, like just crushed it across his face with the gaffy stick.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of creepy almost, like
Yeah.
how dirty he did him. And like the stormtrooper who was kind of in charge, how like he cried out like no just before Boba Fett like brings the gaffy stick down and stabs him to death.
Yep.
Like it was very, very visceral. And again, like I think this was the redemption, corny or not, that Boba Fett fans needed in terms of him being like a really cool action star. Um, and there's a couple of things that I want to mention that come to mind, and I want to ask what you guys thought about these. Um, so what I like, one of my favorite moments of the episode was when Boba Fett returns to using his rear mounted rocket launcher on the backpack.
Yes.
So yeah, we'll skip around a little bit in the narrative, but this is when, some ships are trying to escape basically after the combat. Like Boba Fett is just so badass that like he scares them away basically after he uses a weapon that's finally become canon, right? I think it was mentioned in like in guidebooks and stuff like that. Which we'll get into some of that stuff in a minute. But so he uses the rocket launcher, and it's so cool because he shoots down one of the transport ships, and it crashes into the other transport ship. Din Djarin immediately says, like, "Nice shot." Boba Fett jokes around and says, "I was aiming for the other one," and in the awesome Tamora Morrison voice and accent. So that was a cool moment. I mean, there's so many cool moments in this episode.
Yes, there are.
But also, like, this is not even a joke to me. I thought actually it was actually really, really cool. And this is going to sound slightly weird, but I know the fans have already talked about this part. Like, Boba Fett, man, bro, like, you rock that dad bod, bro. You rock it. Like, he had a little gut or whatever, but like, how can you fault him for like eating good when he can still kick that much butt? You know what I mean? Like, the way that the man still moves, and like, I just want to say, like, for me, I think it was a little bit of symbolism, and then I want to move on to what you guys thought about all of that I just mentioned. I think it was a little bit of symbolism to say, in a way, because they could have changed the armor size to like not accentuate that so much. I think it was a way to say that the armor still doesn't quite fit the way that it used to. For me, I think just like in the subtle way that they had Cobb Vanth completely not fitting in the Boba Fett armor at all.
I was just about to say that.
Yeah, I think that was a point that they're trying to make. I'm not saying that they're going to necessarily change this, but if you watch like the Disney Gallery documentary with Jon Favreau and the rest of the creators, there's a lot of subtle things like that they throw in just to make a small point. Yeah. So, what did you guys think of like the best combat moments for Boba Fett or Din Djarin or Fennec Shand? And what did you think about Tamora Morrison just like being a normal human being and just like being a badass with a dad bod? Like, what did you guys think of those moments in this episode?
I'm just a simple man looking to make his way throughout the universe, like my father before me.
He
So
just
that
changed
was
that
really
last line,
cool.
right? Because I think Django said galaxy and not universe.
And he also added the father before me, which is like a great little callback to Luke speaking about Darth Vader and stuff.
Yeah. That was really cool. And again, Tamora Morrison knocked it out of the park with the delivery, I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
What else? What did you guys think? Eli, what did you think about some of your favorite combat moments? Because, like, I guess just to give the context again, what happens, is Boba Fett's trying to get his armor back, and that's the initial conflict. That's why he followed and tracked Din Djarin to this planet, and Fennec Shand actually is assisting him in getting his armor back. So at first, in the episode, Boba Fett and Fennec Shand are against Din Djarin, and then the stormtroopers come, they realize they're all on the same side, and they kind of come together as a crew in order to help defend Baby Yoda, Grogu, who's on the Seeing Stone, from Imperial troops, right? Let's just make sure we have all the context in Imperial troops, and Moff Gideon, who tracked them to this planet, right? So that's why all this combat is taking place. If you've seen the episode, you understand that. So yeah, like, long story short though, like, what did you think of the combat in this episode, Eli? And like, what did you think of seeing Tamora Morrison just like be a guy, man, just like rock it and just kick butt with the dad bod?
I mean, it was just completely awesome. There's
Yeah.
no other word for it because it was so brutal with all the
Yes.
different fighting they had, and it really just here's yeah
The rocket gut punch.
Oh yeah.
I forgot about that. Wait.
The stormtrooper getting freaking uppercut
Yeah, and then
in the gut.
blast him off.
Wasn't that his flamethrower?
Yeah, one of the things.
It was
Yeah,
it was
Hombo went flying though.
Yeah, but I'm just saying this. Did it not seem a little bit fan made? It seemed
What?
like a fan made movie.
It was okay. The thing about it is that
Why do you say that? I'm just curious. But go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Walt. Finish your
No,
point.
no.
Eli, I'm curious why you said
Let
that.
him
Well, that's going
explain.
off the topic of like combat, but I just wanted to bring this up because
Mhm.
it really felt like it, and like how they did like the
All the fan service is
No,
that
like
what you're
the-
looking for?
how it's like the stormtrooper fights between like You know what? Forget what I said. But even still,
No, no, no. What? Like, I'm curious. I am curious. Unless you thought of it better and you don't believe that's the case, why did it feel like a fan film? Was it the production value? Was it again like what Walt said? Well, Walt said it was fan service. You said that's not really it.
You know?
What is it? What is it that felt like that? You know what I mean? Like, and if it's just a feeling, that's okay. You don't have to like articulate it any further. But
yeah,
like,
it's just
what
it's
aspect of it? Is there any aspect of it that made it feel like a fan film to you? The combat?
no, no, it's just a feeling. It was just a
All right.
feeling.
Okay. Maybe
Okay.
maybe like I said, maybe it's like this huge fan service for Boba Fett that everything was just like, well, or maybe not. So, um,
I thought it was necessary fan service.
yeah.
Yeah, same
Yeah.
here.
Go ahead, Walt.
The thing about it is that Boba being on Tatooine, I would tend to think that he would either he's rocking some awesome sunblock. The man is extremely pale from being on Tatooine. You know what I'm saying? He was like he
That's
had like that
true.
milky whiteness, and I guess that's
Maybe his
kind of
skin
to
was wrecked
show.
by the
Yeah, that's
Sarlacc, right?
exactly. I think that was meant to show how difficult. I would have liked to have gotten well, actually, you know what? I take that back because I'm pretty sure within these next couple episodes, they're going to build more on, Boba Fett and how he escaped and what he's been doing and stuff. So, you know what? I take that back. I think it was a really good way of introducing him. And like I said, seeing him and Fennec Shan work together, and Fennec Shan was just
She was dope
super
with that rifle.
super boss. I mean, she's going around headshotting everybody. There was the little point where she's running off the cliff and turns around, and it's kind
Dives
of
and
been,
shoots backwards.
yeah, it's kind of been done many times, but for whatever reason it looked really cool seeing
Yeah,
her do it,
I think she has a cool outfit. I think that's part of it. I like her outfit. It's pretty dope.
yeah.
And that rifle is
yeah.
pretty cool too.
You know what? Just to expand on that, that's probably what made me feel like it was fan made because a lot of the stuff that was done here was probably done before, and it felt almost
Okay.
familiar.
Okay. That I can understand. It's true. There were some aspects of the action, especially with Fennec Shand, like Walt said, that were a little cliche. It was still cool though, I think. Like sometimes a little
Yeah,
cliche can be pretty cool regardless.
Yeah, it was kind of weird because as I was watching the movie, it kind of reminded me of Battlefront, Star Wars Battlefront,
yeah,
The
because
movie.
there's no, yeah, there's like
A lot of the designs are inspired,
yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
because there is in the first new Star Wars Battlefront. I'm not talking about the old one that was on like the original Xbox and stuff.
The current gen ones or the
The
previous
current gen,
gen ones, not
there,
the 360 ones, I think, right? Or no,
yeah,
the
there's
original Xbox.
there's actually like a map where you're getting overrun by stormtroopers in almost the exact same position, the exact same setting, and so I'm like, oh wow, we're actually watching Battlefront in live action, you know so but it was cool. And it's not a criticism. I have a couple of criticisms of the episode, but
Oh,
that's not one of them.
okay. Let's talk about a couple of criticisms actually, and
Yes,
then we can return to
please.
some things. But I wanted to ask you, AJ, because I have a couple of things that I wanted to talk about that I didn't necessarily understand the choices that they made in the episode. And I have one criticism for a moment that was just kind of pointless that they kept doing over and over again. So for me, I'll
Yeah.
say that the one pointless moment that like kind of took me out of the episode a couple of times is Din Djarin repeatedly trying to break through that like force barrier that was
Yep.
around Grogu
Totally agree with that one.
to like grab him and be like, "Oh, we got to go, kid, we got to go." Like they're trying to kill us. And like he did it like what, like four times, and he just got launched backwards. And each time he was just like, "Oh, okay, well, I'll just protect you now." It was just like, have you not realized that you're not getting through there, bro? Just wait on top of the freaking mountain
He got
and like
knocked out at one
shoot whoever
point, didn't
gets
he? Right?
there.
yeah,
Yeah, he got knocked out by getting launched by
Yeah.
the force from Baby Yoda reaching out through the force. I got, by the way, keep a note on that because I want to talk about the implication of Baby Yoda reaching out in the force in that way later because I have a theory. Um, so that moment to me was kind of a like a wasted moment, especially in a short episode. They could have done something more interesting and more fun with that because I think they were trying to show like how in a heavy-handed way in ways that they also did in the previous episode and in this episode they were trying to show how desperate Din Djarin like cares for Grogu.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was about to say that.
yeah, but
Yeah, but it
you
wasn't
could have
effective.
done it better. You could have done it better.
And the other moment, and you guys can talk about that, but the other moment I wanted to mention, and this is to me, I don't want to say it's a plot hole, but I think some clarification on this. And I've trusted the show to do this so far, because I felt that the filler episodes and some of those details were going to come back, and some of them have. So here's my question to you guys and what you thought about this moment and what they're going to do about it. Why did Boba Fett not take his armor back a long time ago? Why did he wait until now?
Yep.
That's something that I don't understand. AJ, what do you think about those 2 points? And then what were your kind of similar thoughts on other aspects of the episode?
So, on the note of him repeatedly bashing his brains in, trying to break through a force barrier,
Yeah.
I didn't really mind that too much because, again, it shows his devotion to Grogu.
Mhm.
But at the same time, looking back at it, it does seem kind of, there are more pressing issues at the moment, like the squads of stormtroopers raining down from the
Yeah.
sky. And leaving him unguarded, especially with what happens at the end, which I do kind of have a problem with.
Yeah,
I'll
that
get to
annoyed
that.
me
Yeah,
also.
they set that up in a strange way. With I think that this was kind of setting it up, like you said, like that moment
Yeah.
trying to keep going back was setting up him leaving Baby Yoda alone, and also the jetpack moment in the episode. Let's not forget. Let's
Yeah,
mention that real quick.
why didn't he get the Rising Phoenix back?
Yeah, because at the
As
beginning
he's
of the
going up the
episode, right?
mountain.
They all
Well,
say, "Let's drop our weapons." Boba Fett says, "Let's drop our weapons," and he tells Mando to drop the Rising Phoenix to take it off and put it down.
mhm.
So yeah, AJ, like, what about that moment? Like, what did you think about that? I guess in relation to how they set up the episode.
I mean, I think it was smart of them to, I guess, put pressure on Din, but
Hmm.
I don't know. I feel like he should have remembered, oh, well, hey, those things are coming down from the sky. Maybe I should go get my Rising Phoenix.
Yeah.
But I don't know. But
Well,
yeah.
I think you can make the case that because you had the Dark Troopers coming down, which by the way,
That
awesome
wasn't
moment.
until the end, though. That wasn't until
Yeah,
I
Stormtroopers came.
no, no, I
actually
I know, but
Yeah, go ahead.
you maybe figured that the Rising Phoenix was kind of like an afterthought at that point because you did have this. Oh, so let's go back to the Stormtroopers. You had wave after wave of Stormtroopers. Maybe he felt that he didn't have enough time to get back to the Rising Phoenix without you know kind of putting everybody in danger.
Boba Fett sure
And
did.
well,
He
yeah, I
didn't have
know,
his
but
armor, and he just saw it
he just
in the
didn't care. He
Razor
was like
Crest.
later.
He was like, "I'm taking that now."
Yeah. Which again probably shows the level of experience and confidence that both of these characters have,
Yeah.
because as we've seen throughout these 2 seasons, the Mandalorian is kind of green, when it comes to this kind of stuff, where
Mhm.
you have Boba Fett who's experienced that said, you know what, Fennec Shan can take care of herself. Let me go get my armor. Whereas Mando is kind of like, you know what, I gotta stay here and help because she's not gonna be able to do it on her own. In terms of when the Dark Troopers were coming down from the sky, which was a great sequence, and it kind of reminded me of Iron Man 2 with all the armors and things
Yeah.
coming
Yeah.
around.
Yeah, I agree.
But the thing that annoyed me was that slow crawl to the top, with
Yeah.
them rushing. And again, there is another instance where he probably thought it would waste more time for me to go get the Rising Phoenix instead of me just making a direct line straight to the top.
Oh,
I, you
you
know,
mean Mando and Fennec running up to the top to try to get
Oh,
Grogu?
that
Yeah.
was just that was to me. I'm gonna use one of Eli's things. That was kind of cringy and corny because
Hmm.
first of all, why did you? Well, you know what? It's kind of a theme with him. He leaves Baby Yoda Grogu
At the wrong
at
times.
the wrong times,
Yeah.
and he leaves them with anybody. And in this case, he left him by himself. Which
Hmm.
is kind of a running theme with him. But it's just like that they're there for him. Why would you even walk away at that point? You
Yeah,
know that
exactly. You get
and
everybody to the top of that damn thing, and you fight.
and
You defend that position.
listen, he's got to use a Star Wars term. He's got the high ground. You know, he could
Yeah.
defend that place much more easily. Why would you even think of leaving? That to me was probably the biggest gripe that I had with the episode, because again, he does dumb things for the purposes of the story, and it's just like, why would you even think about that? You know that they're there for him.
Hmm.
Why would you leave? You know,
Yeah.
that's just my thought on that.
That definitely wasn't the smartest thing that he did in the episode for sure.
To speak on the Boba not finding his armor until now,
Yeah, I'm
well,
curious.
I mean, I
It's been years,
I
right?
mean, see, here's the thing.
Yeah.
Back when he was a dope, I could reconcile that he couldn't track it down. But now that I've seen what a not dope he is, I
Yeah.
don't know.
Like,
But
why wouldn't he
It
just
wasn't like
take
Cobb
it from
Vanth was
Cobb Vanth?
hiding it. He wasn't
yeah,
hiding it,
that's the
you
other
know.
thing too.
I think we're gonna get a reason because again, I'm trusting this show. It has paid off with some of the moments that seemed small last season. Even the return of Fennec Shand and like Boba Fett, as we now know, you know, helping her back to health or like watching over her in the first season. Things are paying off, I guess, but I think that's going to be a plot hole if they don't explain why Boba Fett took it earlier. I think they will.
Yeah.
I guess we'll see what happens.
Okay,
Um,
so the other problem that I
yes.
had,
Mhm.
I'm sorry, but I absolutely detested the Dark Trooper scene
Oh
because it
wow.
felt too much.
Really?
It felt too much like an Iron Man thing.
It did.
All I could think of at that moment was, oh hey, look, Ultron prototypes. Like,
Yeah, it's like Armor Wars.
yeah, I mean, maybe if you had them drop in less, I don't know. To
Or
me,
if they did
that
something, if they
felt
actually
cringy.
attacked a little instead of just
Not
grabbing
even that. If they came
Grogu.
in drop pods, I don't care. I would have found that better, but not like flying in like freaking Ultron style. Because that to me is like, oh, it's just no.
Well, you're not the only one, because I'm on a couple of groups on Facebook when it comes to Star Wars, and
Mhm.
there are a lot of people that didn't like not only the entrance of the Dark Troopers but the design of the Dark Troopers.
Okay, that's
Um,
one thing I'll hold off on. I did like the way they looked.
yeah,
Yeah, me
but
too.
there's a lot of people that don't. They were like, why are we having they I've seen some people saying, they're just an upgraded version of the Death Troopers. How many times are we gonna continue to kind of upscale stormtroopers? There's always a better version. I mean, we went from clone troopers to Republic Commando troopers to stormtroopers to captains and lieutenants and sand and snow, and
Yeah.
there's
Uh,
always another variation of the stormtroopers. And I think a lot of people were kind of put off. It was like, okay, do we really need this? And I think the other thing that people were put off is that these aren't actual well, people in the armor. They're
yeah.
more, you know super battle droids type
Yeah.
of thing. And I think a lot of people weren't on board with that either.
Well,
I have a
yeah,
wait.
Eli, let you make a point in a second. I just wanted to say this really quickly because I enjoy watching Screen Crush, the YouTube channel, and they
Hmm.
were talking about this episode, and they made a point that was kind of funny to me, and it's true because the clone troopers and the stormtroopers replaced droids, right? They were supposed to be better than droids. They were
Yeah.
supposed to replace the droid armies, but now it's full circle. The droids are now replacing the human troopers again. The robot dark troopers are like, I guess, they replaced the droid armies because they were obsolete and terrible. And I mean, I guess it's some time has passed in the technology, but now they're like, oh, we can replace the human armies with these droids now.
Yeah.
It came kind of in a weird way full circle. So yeah, Eli, I'm sorry, you were going to make a point, I believe, about the dark troopers.
Yeah.
Maybe your opinion on it. Why don't you tell us what you thought about that?
See, it's just a small gripe, but like
Hmm.
the whole thing where when they drop down, first off, I know this is like not even that big, but why were they taking so long? Like they were walking so slowly. So why would you have droids, right? And how did Mando not even
Yeah.
get up there in time?
Again, it's a steep incline.
No, it wasn't steep.
No,
It
but
was
I
flat.
mean,
he's
that,
talking about when the dark troopers surrounded
when
Grogu
they land,
Yeah,
Oh,
and
but
then
I'm talking about
slowly
yeah,
I'm
walking
but
talking
to
about
pick him up.
actually going up the mountain.
yeah, but
That
even
was
No,
a
no,
still,
steep
he's
incline.
yeah, but
yeah,
he's
I'm
talking
talking about
about
the dark
them
troopers.
landing very much like Lord of the Rings style with
yeah,
the
yeah.
the Nazgul and
Yeah,
slowly walking to the center.
I
yeah,
You know,
half expected Legolas to come out and save, like
exactly.
to
You
like
know,
jump up
A-
and start
A-
chopping at them.
A-
Like,
Aragorn with the flaming
yeah, sorry, that Aragorn,
yeah,
not Legolas.
exactly.
And that's another thing. If you were going to show the Dark Troopers, I would have much preferred to see them in actual action, not retrieval.
well,
Yeah, I agree. I
yeah,
would have loved to see at
Yeah.
least a brief fight, maybe to show, maybe like a brief fight where they
Why are
like
these things
wreck,
dangerous?
where they wreck Fennec Shand and they
yeah.
wreck
Hmm.
Mando and maybe even wreck Boba Fett. Like, well,
They
no,
don't.
he was in the Slave One flying, so I don't know if I
Yeah.
would want them to shoot down Slave One after another moment in this episode, but like, yeah, like a moment where it showed how dangerous they are. Besides just Moff Gideon like glaring and saying like "Moo, ha, 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 Dark Troopers," would have been cool. I think I
Yeah.
agree
Yeah,
with that for sure.
they they didn't even seem dangerous at all, other than their design. Because
They're
if
so
you think
slow.
about it, yeah, they're so slow. What are
Yeah.
they gonna do on the battlefield if they can't get to
They
one
really
position
remind
quick
me of
enough?
Terminators.
Yeah,
Yeah,
a little
Even
bit
the Terminators were faster, no?
yeah,
No,
could be.
T-800s were actually pretty much as fast as them.
Oh, well, you're talking about a specific model, but the models after that were pretty quick,
Oh, I
you
mean,
know?
of course,
Yeah.
as the
So you
engineering.
mean the T800
Yeah,
model
I'm
specifically?
talking about
Oh,
the
okay.
T-800
Yeah,
models.
Schwarzenegger in every movie
I'm not
basically.
talking about like the like the
The
newest ones.
T1000,
T1000s
Yeah,
and
you know.
all that 101.
those are different.
Yeah.
That's a whole different ballpark.
Okay.
well,
Yeah, but it's true. I kind of got vibes of that as well. I got Nazgul, Aragorn, Lord of the Rings, and a little bit Terminator vibes from them
Yeah.
too,
You got a
which
little
does
bit
make
of
them a little
everything.
more intimidating. The Terminator vibe a little bit.
Yeah,
mhm.
but you know what?
Yeah.
To their point, um, it seems like Moff Gideon has an entire squadron of them. You know, you could have
Yeah,
probably dropped four to pick up Grogu, and then dropped another four to kind of,
to kill
you know,
everybody.
exactly. You know, so it's not like unless
Well,
are you saying that these are the only four that's available at this point? You know, and
I
the other
think that
ones.
was more strategy. Like if it was me, I'd rather send in the dumb klutzes to distract the guys down below while I get the
Yeah,
real prize with
Yeah,
the
but
things
weren't
I
they
can
dead at
count
this
on.
point?
yeah,
He was still
Boba Fett.
sending more because you had the one, okay, they went down. Then you had the other, okay, that's more suppression.
Right, I know, but Boba Fett blasted both of them out of the sky by the time that these guys came in, didn't they?
Well, I mean,
What
I
the
guess,
ships?
but
Yeah.
Yeah,
They, yeah, so
I guess what I'm trying to say is it feels like these things are like a last resort, is what
mm,
I'm saying.
okay.
Like you don't necessarily want to put them out there, so
Well,
oh well, what if they know how to deal with them by the time they send them out?
they might be also too expensive and the Empire
Yep,
being on a budget.
that too.
So
well, if anything though, like you figure like Moff Gideon, at least in my eyes, would try to kill Mando. This guy's been the thorn in his side. He's the one who's been keeping Grogu away from him all this time,
yeah.
and he's
yeah,
gotten him back from him. He's taken him from him twice, right?
yeah.
So
So
you figure if you're Moff Gideon, you just be like, just please kill this guy. I'm so sick of him.
yeah,
So
so
an action sequence where maybe like they sent maybe a couple of dark troopers, maybe the four like take Grogu, and then like two of them are like, all right, you guys stay behind and then like kill them,
There you go.
and like a struggle maybe where like those two are almost able to take out Fennec Shand and Boba and Din to show how dangerous they are, but Din somehow and them they somehow win. But again, you still see how dangerous these troopers are. They're not stormtroopers. They're not any other kind of troopers that are fodder. That would have been, I think, a slightly better way to complete that at the end. I don't know if you
Yeah.
guys agree.
yeah, I
And,
agree.
and before we continue, can we have a moment of silence for the Razor Crest?
Yes, I was
Yeah,
gonna say that. Speaking of killing
That
off
was that
characters,
tragedy.
was that was devastating in of itself,
Yes,
you know.
it
For
was, dude.
for it
I was
just
getting
being a
I
ship.
was falling in love with the Razor Crest.
Yeah, so was I, you know. And for it just being a ship, but you know what? you know how important ships are in the Star Wars lexicon.
Yeah. It'll be
And
like the Millennium Falcon getting blown up right in front of Han Solo.
yeah, it was. I'm surprised at how upset I was when we saw the thing get blown up. You know,
Yeah. It
so
was sad, dude. It was like, damn, now I know why this episode is called a tragedy. Besides the
on
Grogu
many levels, yeah.
instance. Yeah. I mean, that was a tragedy as well, but like this was like almost I figured something or somebody was gonna die. And something did, which
Hmm.
is a moment of silence for the Razor Crest. I hope we see it again somehow. I hope it gets rebuilt. Or he
Do we
gets
hope?
an even cooler ship that's an homage to the Razor Crest.
Do we do kind of like in The Walking Dead in memoriams for the stormtroopers, or can we? Do we just move on?
We're gonna play some Sarah McLaughlin while we like show an
Oh.
introspective of all the dead stormtroopers
Speaking of
and the Razor
stormtroopers getting messed up, I
Crest.
really like what they did at the very end,
which
where
which
Moff
moment?
Gideon is going to see Grogu,
Oh
and he
yeah,
walks in
Oh
on
yeah,
him
that was
just
great.
completely throwing them around like rag
That was
dolls.
right.
great.
So like, cool. Let's get to that because then we have the moment at the end of the episode, or just before that in the episode. Grogu is kidnapped by the Dark Troopers. As we mentioned, they fly back up to Moff Gideon's cruiser. Boba Fett follows them in the Slave One. Initially, he's gonna like try to get you Baby Yoda back, but Mando, of course, warns him like, "Don't shoot the Dark Troopers down. You could hurt Baby Yoda." And Boba Fett, refrains from shooting at the Dark Troopers. He does what he calls a loose follow, and he
Yeah,
sees that the Empire is back, which is a
I
big sticking point for him. That was a cool moment, right?
I like how just before we move on, that I like how Boba Fett kind of like pledged, and you could see the honor that he has, because he said, you know what, well, I guess we're Mando goes to him, I guess we're parting ways. He was like,
Mhm.
not quite yet, because I still haven't held up my end of the deal.
Yeah,
you
it
know
shows. It shows. It's a good way also to that moment for me to really drive the point home. The point that's been kind of a point of contention for fans is Boba Fett, is Django, are they Mandalorians? And we definitely get confirmation that they are Mandalorians in this episode. As a matter of fact, we find out that Django was a foundling, just like Din
hmm
Djarin was, right?
and fought in something called the Mandalorian Civil War, which we have not seen yet,
Yep. Yep. So
which
we get
which is interesting.
we get those confirmations finally of like some clarification on who Boba is,
Yeah.
who Django is,
And
which yeah, super
just for
cool.
the fans, the Mandalorian Civil War that we saw in Rebels with the siege of Mandalore and all that stuff, that is not the one that he's referring to. He's referring to another civil war.
Mhm.
So just to make the point of clarification, in case anybody says, "Oh, well, we've seen it in Rebels before," we actually really haven't, because this is a different one that he's talking about. Because the one in Rebels, Django was already dead by that time. This is a different civil war
Right.
that
That
he's
was him
taking on.
fighting in a civil war in Rebels,
Exactly.
right? Boba
Hmm.
himself, which is
Right.
is that no that is canon, right? That would
That is canon. Yes.
yes. So there's more to explore when it comes to that, for sure.
Which I'm sure they put that in there for a reason,
Yeah.
aka Boba Fett series.
Yeah, probably, right? That's the
Yeah.
that's the rumor. The Boba Fett spinoff is one, and the Ahsoka Tano Bo-Katan spinoff is another thing that's being bandied about right now.
Yep.
As well as the Obi-Wan spinoff. I feel like you could tie all of those together into one huge story, which is
Yeah.
This is getting out
probably
of
what they're
hand.
going
Now there are two of them.
Yeah. Which is exciting because Obi-Wan is supposed to start filming very, very soon.
Hello there.
Ooh.
So,
I can't wait to hear Ewan McGregor say that again. Hello there.
yeah.
Wait,
That's like
when
his catchphrase.
when does it take place?
The Obi-Wan,
The
the Obi-Wan,
Obi-Wan.
That's probably
Obi-Wan,
taking
Obi-Wan.
place
Obi-Wan,
before episode 4.
Yeah, it'll
Boba
probably
Fett.
be the
Between 3
time
and
when
4.
he's watching over Luke.
Wait,
Yeah,
so Maul? I'm not.
probably.
Maul, yeah, because remember, Maul did happen. Now, the only thing I would say is that we've already seen what happens to Maul in the animated show,
Yeah,
so
so
I
they.
don't know if maybe they'll revisit that.
He'll probably have
Um,
moments. If they have
the,
all
Yeah.
three of those shows, they'll probably involve him somehow, even
well,
if it's in a small way.
maybe it's a flashback as to, oh, remember the time where I finally killed Darth Maul, you
Or
know.
maybe they'll explain what the heck they were trying to do in Solo. Because remember, they had that post-credit scene where we get the return of Maul. briefly.
That is true too. So
Yeah, but I
there's
don't
some things that you can do there. But the
I don't
problem
think so
is,
though, because Darth Maul didn't even know about Obi-Wan there, and Obi-Wan
Mhm.
couldn't care less.
but you could make the case that it's the time period from Solo up until New Hope. But the only problem with that thinking is I believe that Obi-Wan is only a limited series. I know they've confirmed for season 1, but when people ask them about season 2, they are very less committal. You know, they're more non-committal with that one. So I don't know if we would get a season 2, and I think if you're going to tell that story, it's kind of expansive, so you may need multiple seasons to tell it. So that's the only thing I would say on that. You know.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. All right. So let's move on, I guess, real quick. Sorry, excuse me. Before we get the moment of that AJ was talking about with Grogu tossing stormtroopers around, we do have to mention briefly that after Boba Fett, with his honor, offers to help Mando find Grogu with
Yep.
the help of Fennec Shand as well.
Oh
Again,
my
awesome moment.
god.
We have Mando return to Navarro briefly. And he goes to see Cara Dune, and we find out there um, that they're going to bust out that
Oh
Mando's
yeah,
plan, I should say, is he's going to bust out. And this is again, remember, I
I
told you guys
forgot
these
about that.
filler episodes were going to come back, man. I told you they were going to come back. I knew it. They're going to bust out Bill Burr, who appeared in last season. His character appeared in last season. His name is Miggs something. I'm sorry if I'm blanking on that.
Mayfield.
Miggs Mayfield. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So he's in prison for like what he did last season with Mando, breaking out that other guy and like killing the New Republic officer, which also came back earlier in this season um, when Mando was released by New Republic soldiers because they found out he tried to save that New Republic officer from Miggs Mayfield and the rest of the crew, right? But we get that moment where he tells Cara Dune, like, I need your help. I need to get to this guy. He's former Empire, Miggs Mayfield. So he figures that Miggs can help him find Moff Gideon. Right.
Yep.
So we get that return. By
And
the
in
way, I
the
don't know if you guys
contract.
saw, this is a really
Hmm.
quick thing, might be an Easter egg or might come back. The Simon Pegg's favorite collaborator, Nick Frost, the actor Nick Frost,
Yes.
I believe he was one of the pictures in
Really.
those. Yeah, look at it again. Um, it's not confirmed, but one of the pictures very much looks like Nick Frost. And Simon Pegg has already been involved in Star Wars. He was in The Force Awakens.
Yep.
And again, they're longtime collaborators. I imagine he's as big of a Star Wars fan as Simon Pegg is.
Listen,
So maybe
everybody
we'll
gets
see.
thrown into Star Wars lately.
Yeah, I love that, honestly. I really
Hmm.
love that like Star Wars has taken the time, and Jon Favreau, I just want to mention real quick for anybody that's really enjoying this show, definitely watch the Disney Gallery documentaries with Jon Favreau and Bryce Dallas Howard, Rick Fukuyawa, all the directors, all the actors. There's some great commentary, some great background information about the entire show. Um, so it's definitely something worth checking out. But let's get to the moment at the end. That is, oh my god, it's heartbreaking to watch. It's funny at a moment, but it's heartbreaking. Baby Grogu is in custody. Moff Gideon goes to check in on his prisoner, and as AJ mentioned, actually AJ, why don't you set the scene for us, since this is one of your favorite moments of the episode? You have Moff Gideon enter in while Baby Grogu is chucking stormtroopers around, right? So what do we have that happens in this particular scene?
So, he's flinging guys around, and woo, and then he finally claps it off with bringing them both together and smashing their faces. And he kind of just limps down because he starts getting tired because
Like Jean Grey.
Moff Gideon goes, "Oh, you're pretty good at this, but I notice it leaves you pretty tuckered out." And Grogu goes to do a thing, but he's like, no, no, no," and he flashes the dark saber, and he's like, "Hey, since you're pretty good at this, you might like one of these. Oh, but you know what? This is for the big boys.
Nah.
I think I should hold on to this." And then he asks one of the stormtroopers to like stun him, and that kind of like, ouch.
Can I?
That kind of hurt to see.
Oh, it was cool to see the stun feature return from
Yeah.
A New Hope. The last time we saw that, I think, was Princess Leia getting stunned by that. But Baby Yoda's like expressions in that whole scene like kind of broke my heart because he was so tough with the stormtroopers, but then he tried to be tough with Moff Gideon. But then I think, and I don't know if what you guys think of this moment, but when he sees the dark saber, he's afraid, right? Like there's fear, and he's like shaking. And I know he's trying to get the dark saber away from Moff Gideon too, using the Force. But you see like how afraid he is in that moment. He's seen that thing before, whether he's seen a lightsaber or maybe even the dark saber specifically. I don't know if that's going to happen.
No, I don't think no.
Probably not, but
Maybe.
there was some recognition there. And yeah, like again, that whole scene like kind of broke my heart to see that happen to baby Grogu. What did you think of that whole scene, Eli, at the end and the implications of it?
See, yeah, it was really heartbreaking, but I have a theory, and maybe Grogu might be going. I don't know. I don't know because
No, go ahead.
he's
No,
not.
no, no. Your theories have been good in the past. Don't you be shy about them.
What
This
would his
isn't. This is
what would his name be?
Oh
Darth
God,
Grogu.
You think
no,
super
Yeah,
dark?
you guys like that theory.
no. That is.
Yeah,
I'm
but
sorry. That's absurd.
see, the thing
It's
is,
not
yeah,
absurd to me. I
it's
like
No,
it
it's
very
not.
much.
No, I get it, but like, come on.
He's
it's a
he's
little
shown
bit.
flashes of the dark side.
Yeah, it's a
Yes,
little
that's
bit
here and there.
true.
outlandish, and Ahsoka even said it herself. I don't know what she meant by that, but maybe she said choose his path. He's
Yeah.
not exactly a Jedi. He's not exactly light. He's not exactly
And she
in the
did
light side.
mention the dark thoughts or something like that. I can't remember her
Fear.
exact
Yeah,
phrase.
She did the whole
You know.
fear
fear.
leads to the dark side
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
anger. I sense much fear in you.
So
Yeah, and there's like that dark period that she spoke about, or something like that that he had. So we don't know exactly what she meant by that either.
yeah, I'm not exactly saying that he's gonna go to the dark side, but I'm just saying there's a chance. If not, then no, I really think that he might be a gray Jedi.
I
But
agree,
that's
though. I actually agree. You know why?
yeah,
And I don't agree for any other reason than, and I hate to say this, but my prediction is the show has to end in tragedy. It's not going to be a
yeah.
happy ending. How can it be a happy ending if the First Order comes to power after this? Like it's going
And
to end in a bad way, and maybe
remember,
sadly it's going to end with Grogu going to the dark side and Mando and others having to face him. I mean, I don't know.
Snoke.
I think it's leading there too, but
Yeah.
Yes,
we're
my
gonna see.
guy. Before he was made into a
Before he got Boba,
stunt double. Oh God.
he got Boba, bro. He got Boba. It was like
Not,
this.
that's
There's
not
this
even what
guy.
I'm concerned. That I mean, yes,
No,
that's a
he got
problem, but
mauled.
I
got
don't
mauled.
like.
Yeah, he mainly got mauled, cut in
Mm.
half.
I
He
really
did.
just don't
Cut
like
in
how they
three
made
pieces,
him a
right?
stunt double
Yeah.
for the Emperor. I
Mm.
wasn't completely
He
okay
was
with
just a
that
stand-in.
either.
It's true, but yeah, I think it might be leading that way. It's possible, but
I
Yeah.
still, man, I wish. I'm not even gonna go into that.
I'm not gonna force you into it, but I'm just
I really liked the idea that he could have been Darth Plagueis and just been a remnant of the Phantom Menace the whole plot.
I wanted that
But
too. I think a lot of fans wanted that. I think that would have been a cool way to be like, oh man, there's a villain even more dangerous than Palpatine in this. And then you could have even brought Palpatine back in a different way, but had Snoke be more impactful and make the whole story better. But oh my God, we can't get into the Rise of Skywalker now. We're gonna be
yeah, let's not.
All I'm gonna say
Trash.
is this: this watching the show only makes me sadder that Favreau and Filoni wasn't involved in the sequel trilogy. That's all I'm gonna say.
I think that the last two episodes are the best thing we've seen Star Wars in years. The last three episodes, as a matter of fact, honestly, because for me, they've been amazing. Like I get this, I've gotten the feeling of Star Wars from those last two episodes.
Yeah.
Like the moment when
Yeah.
Ahsoka is having her conversation about Anakin, I got chills, I got feels, like Star
Yeah.
Wars feels. In this episode, all the moments with Grogu, Boba Fett returning, I got total Star Wars feels. And the last time I felt that was early on in The Force Awakens. That's it. That's the last time. Because the Force Awakens was pretty good, and for me the moment in the Force Awakens was when we meet Rey and we see her like in the Star Destroyer remains and like going through all the remains of all these things. To me, that was a very Star Wars moment. The music, the setting. I had a feeling of Star Wars there, but I haven't
Wait,
felt that since.
what about the last season of Clone Wars or whatever?
See, like I'm a blasphemer. I still have to catch up on all of that. So,
The last
but
season of
that's oh, that's right. Clone Wars came out after the most recent movies. That's true. So
yeah,
I have a lot of catching up to do. But at least in live action, this was
Yeah,
the first time in a while that I felt like that kid nostalgia of watching Star Wars.
yeah,
You know, what I
I agree.
mean, what do you guys think of the last couple of episodes? And then
I
maybe
just now realized this.
yeah, what's up?
I think we're gonna have a, and I can't believe I didn't see it before. I feel like a moron. And the last thing Mando is able to salvage from the wreckage, or rather, I should say, the
Oh yeah,
ashes of the Razor Crest, are not only the little ball, he gets that spear.
the
And it
best
just
Yeah.
now clicked that wait, that's made of Beskar. We're going to have a face off between Gideon and Mando with
Oh yeah.
that freaking spear. It's going to
probably
be
yeah.
awesome.
That's why they
Yeah.
did that with the magistrate, right? They demonstrated how powerful Beskar can be, even against lightsabers or dark sabers.
yeah.
Yeah, that's
I
the other thing. The
Yeah.
dark saber is heavier. That might actually that has a chance of cutting that thing in half if done
Yeah.
right. So it'll be
Definitely.
an interesting fight.
And
I think
I can't
I
wait to see the context, especially related to the larger Mandalorian battles and like the dark saber being a Mandalorian kind of heirloom for the ruler. That's all going to be really interesting. Like, is
yeah.
Mando going to become the ruler of freaking Mandalore? Like, certainly could go that way if he has a final conflict for the dark saber.
I think
But then that's going to
Bo
put him in
Katan is
conflict with
gonna
yeah.
Bo Katan's gonna have something to say about that.
That's true,
You know.
but might be interesting. Maybe not though.
Yeah. The one thing that you know the one last little gripe, and it's really a micro gripe, is that this episode could have served as a series finale the way that they ended it up. You know,
Yeah, I was going to
Or a
agree
season
on that.
finale,
a
right?
season finale. Yes, I'm sorry. And if anything, I think the writing's on the wall for Moff Gideon. He's not surviving season two. I
You don't
think.
think so?
No,
We're
I
gonna find
really
out who
don't.
the greater villain is. Well, maybe Grand Admiral Thrawn, right?
Yeah, I think the writing is on the wall for that because they're setting up a showdown between Mando and Moff Gideon.
Yeah, he can't
Um,
survive again,
yeah,
right?
exactly. So I think, and that's kind of disappointing in from me because Moff Gideon has not really played a huge role.
Yeah.
He's kind of like bounced in and out of these episodes, so we still don't know a hell of a lot about him. And if it does happen, and listen, my prediction hasn't really worked out because I thought that they were going to end up on Tython at the very end of this season,
Hmm.
and that got blown up like less than an episode going in, right? But it just seems like Moff Gideon's kind of on borrowed time right now, and we've got
Mhm.
2 more episodes to see him, which is a shame because I love the actor, and I would have liked to seen a little bit more of the character. So, um, like I said, and listen, I could be wrong. I've been wrong before, but that's the way it feels like to me.
You know what? We can get into our final thoughts for these episodes
Yep.
after this, but I okay, I get a sneaking suspicion that you might not be correct here
Okay. I
because
hope I'm wrong.
what I'm thinking is going to happen is it's going to be kind of like similar to last season in a way, but I think the stakes are going to get raised somehow. I think he's going to have to involve people like Bo-Katan and Ahsoka Tano in retrieving Grogu because what I think is going to happen, and I don't know who it's going to be, but I have a theory. I think that they're going to lose. I think they're going to find Moff Gideon. They're going to try to get Grogu back. I think they're going to lose, and I think he's going to kill someone. I think that someone's going to be Cara Dune. I get the feeling that she's going to die at the end of this season
Yeah.
because they had a heavy focus on her arc and kind of returning to fight the Empire again. you can't kill off Grief Karga. His arc and his stakes aren't tied to this enough. But she's hugely tied to kind of like a way of wiping out the Empire once and for all, and like
Hmm.
legitimizing the New Republic from the remnants of the rebellion. What I mean, to me, what better cliffhanger is there like than us all expecting that, Mando and Boba Fett and Fennec Shand and all of them win and get baby Grogu back? No. Because you know what I've also kind of noted, and you guys can tell me if you've noticed this as well. Season 1 was kind of like A New Hope. This season has kind of been like Empire Strikes Back in a
That's
similar
true.
way.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
hitting a lot of
that,
similar
When you put
notes.
it that way.
And that did not end well, right?
Oh
Empire
God.
Strikes Back did not end with them winning.
Oh God.
well,
So I don't think they're going to win. I don't think they're going to win.
I wish Wolfie was here because
Oh man, I so
I
agree.
could I can see a scenario where Boba Fett dies, and listen, Mando needs a ship,
Oh
right?
no.
If that happens,
Oh no.
That would be the ultimate insult to all Fett fans out there.
that'll
And
be
you
the
know what?
ultimate FU.
It's never gonna happen. That's why I said I wish Wolfie
Can't
was here so I could
can't do
tease him
that.
with that. But listen, Mando needs a ship. He doesn't have a ship right now.
Yeah. Mhm.
Slave One is out there, so you know, weirder things have happened. I this file this under. It's never gonna happen, but I just want to put it out there to kind of poke at Wolfie a little bit on that.
I think, well, I guess my last prediction related to that is I think what this is going to lead into, and again, these are all small predictions. We have Eli
Yeah,
with that great prediction about Grogu possibly turning to the dark side.
Eli's got the best record so far.
Yeah, I agree. It's a possibility. I agree. It's a strong possibility for sure. Maybe that'll even like factor into the conflict that I'm about to talk about. But like, I think where the show is really going is there's going to be a massive battle again between the New Republic and the remnants of the Empire. And I think that's going to be something that's going to happen in season 3. And it depends on how
Yeah.
long this show goes. But again, like they're going to lose. They're not going to win. There's no happy ending here, right? Because the First Order rises to power and the New Republic loses.
So then, why would you have them lose Grogu so early then?
In this season.
Yeah, in this season, what wouldn't that have better served? That you do that at the very end and leave it on a cliffhanger where the team is in shambles. You're mourning the loss of one of their comrades, and Moff Gideon is happily cackling away on his star destroyer with Grogu, hyperspacing to someplace else.
He
You
hasn't
know.
killed anyone yet. That's why.
No, no, no. I know, but that's
He
what I'm
has to
saying.
die.
Why introduce the fact that you've lost Grogu so early? Wouldn't that been a great cliffhanger to end the season with?
I think
I'm just saying.
I actually
Yeah.
think the cliffhanger is we're gonna find out who Grogu reached out to. I think that's gonna be the cliffhanger of the season. Or not the cliffhanger, but the like we'll see like, oh, and that actually
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
because
that,
he
Right.
that could
did
be a thing for a
stop
whole other
Yeah.
episode.
as
That.
if he got
Yeah.
into contact with someone.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because.
Yeah, we don't
So
know.
I think that's going to be the big cliffhanger of the end of the season. We're going to find out who it is, and maybe that person will reveal themselves to Mando and the crew and be like, "Hey, I saw you guys lost,
Yeah.
Wait.
and
Wait.
this
Wait.
guy reached out to me, and like, yo, like
Please,
I have my obligation to help Grogu. That's why I
please,
came.
please don't let it be Luke.
Wait. Wait.
As
No,
as much as I love, the rumors of Sebastian Stan being Luke, and I would love to see that. Please don't make it that Luke is the one that answers the call. Make it somebody else. Again, expand the
Ooh,
universe a
I
little bit
think I
more.
have an
I have
idea.
two
Go, you
theories.
go first.
Okay. My main theory
Mhm.
is Ahsoka Tano.
Why?
no,
I don't know why.
no, it can't
because
be her because
Oh yeah.
she
Yeah.
told him to reach out to another
yeah,
Jedi. So it has to be.
Because she's not
Well,
a
here's
Jedi.
who's alive,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Luke
Yeah,
is
sorry.
alive. Cal Kestis is alive.
Mhm.
Yaddle is probably alive. Ezra Bridger
Yeah.
might be alive, right? So these are some
Yeah.
possibilities for who that Jedi is going to be.
See.
The other one, and this one is.
and there's also I
Wait,
don't
wait, 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 wait,
believe
wait, wait. There's
no.
this one. I got to
Wait.
mention this one,
Wait.
and then you can mention whatever you're going to say because this is
Mhm.
a theory that's being bandied about, and I think this would be kind of dope. What if Mace Windu returns?
Yes, I know. But there's
Go
also
ahead.
one other Jedi that could be because I don't think she died as that was the other Jedi that was helping Cal Kestis, which is her name was Siri something or other. I can't remember. She
Okay.
might be another Jedi, but she had kind of shut herself off from the Force. So I don't know what the deal is. But the Mace Windu thing has been getting a
Yeah,
lot of traction lately,
That'd be
and
awesome too with his
and
that
conflict
was
with
my
Boba.
second theory.
yeah, and exactly, and you got to remember also Star Wars Theory, which did the original Vader fan film on YouTube, which had a little controversy when Lucasfilm tried to take over that thing. He was at work with on doing a Windu project. And so I think that kind of like opened a lot of eyes to the fact that maybe Mace Windu is alive. And so now bringing him back, we don't have a body for Mace Windu. And we've seen how Star Wars loves to bring back people that you thought were dead. I mean, just look at this episode. Boba Fett was eaten by the Sarlacc. He's alive. The only thing that we know is that maybe Mace Windu doesn't have an arm, and maybe he's got a robotic.
Doesn't have
You
a
know,
hand. Yeah.
Oh, is it a hand
Yeah.
or an arm?
More or less his hand.
Okay.
Maybe a larger portion of his forearm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah,
So but he can always come back. I agree with you, and I think that would be
Yeah,
a
and we've
better
seen
thing.
him leap from gigantic heights and like be like
Exactly.
I mean,
prop.
not even that. Crazier things have happened, like getting cut in half. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, or the Emperor returning from dying. Like, granted, it's different than we would expect it to happen for Mace Windu. We would expect that he didn't die, probably.
Listen, he
But
was on
also, that
Coruscant. We've seen how Coruscant is in terms of traffic.
that begs
So
the question too. Like, his was one of the voices at the end of the Rise of Skywalker, was it not? That spoke to Rey.
yes.
So that's the question too. What happens to him if he's not dead? What happens after that? But yeah, that's a theory too that I think is a
see,
big one, possibly.
that
Do we
was
get Sam Jackson?
Yeah,
Oh,
of
sorry.
course. You have to, no? I mean, Sam Jackson would totally be game to do it, I think.
yeah, that was my second theory. But
What?
also, wasn't he the one? What happened with Mace Windu and Boba? I don't remember.
Well, Mace. I
Remember,
think
Oh,
it's
that
more.
is
It's
another source of
yeah.
tension.
It's
Yeah.
more. It's
killed his
more
dad.
Boba. Yeah. I think it's more Boba than Mace Windu because Mace Windu will be like, "Yeah, I killed your dad," but Boba's
So
gonna look at him and be like, "Dude,
Yeah.
you killed my dad."
See that was the reason why. Yeah,
some
that's
some
gonna
theories I've
be
seen are that
awesome.
that Boba Fett kills Mace Windu, which would be insane. But I don't know
Well,
if that's gonna happen.
you can do that in season 3. You
We'll
know.
see. We'll see. And that would definitely be like, oh my god, the Fett fans would go crazy if he like killed a Jedi, like after getting killed, quote unquote, by one. But we'll
And
see.
that would be an epic fan fight because
Yeah.
there's a lot of Fett fans out there, but there's a lot of Mace Windu fans out there also.
I don't know who I would want to win either. I mean, I'm guessing Wolfie would want Fett to win, but I think he might even be slightly apprehensive to an extent too.
Yeah, that's tough.
'Cause Mace Windu is so popular and so cool, and we really would like to see more of him. Possibly.
It would
I
be a
think he
tie.
would do well. And it would be a big star to land for this show to get Sam Jackson to be on it. Like, that would be a huge bump.
And he's not adverse to showing up because he did show up on the first season of Agents of Shield. So he would.
Yeah,
I think he
he's
would
cool, man.
definitely jump into that.
He'd
with-
like to have fun with it, I think. You
Yep,
know? And he's a Star Wars fan. You know, it's like all these other people who just wanted to be in it and they didn't care how.
And I think he'd be the perfect age for it because it's been how long since Revenge of the Sith?
Right,
So,
that's true. It's been like 30 years in canon or something, or 40 years.
Yep.
Right. And not that Sam Jackson looks 30 or 40 years older, not that he is 30 or 40 years older, but he looks older and it would work. It would make sense.
Dude, Sam Jackson is like 70 years old, I think.
I know.
Yeah,
Exactly.
He looks good for 70.
But he's still like, can kick a little butt for a dude that's in his age, in certain films.
Yep.
So I guess we'll see.
Question: how long exactly does the Mandalorian take place after Return of the Jedi?
I believe it's 5
Ooh,
years.
there, see, but
5 years. Damn.
here's the
I
thing.
believe
Also,
it's 5 years.
let's drop a little thought about that, and then like let's get to our final thoughts. I think on this episode, because
Yeah.
the thing about that is that even Filoni recently said something about like that confused fans as to where the Mandalorian fits into the timeline of Star Wars because so I haven't
No,
seen I think it's Rebels. I haven't seen Rebels, but I
yeah,
believe Rebels ends with Ahsoka Tano, like that's where she's trying to look for Ezra Bridger, right?
I think the case that he was making is not that where the Mandalorian fits in the timeline, but where the scene of Ahsoka Tano in Rebels falls in the in the timeline. I think that's
Right, but
more the point that he was making because
if you
it's
move
been
that around though, that
established.
changes things for sure.
Oh, no doubt, because now what we're seeing in Rebels, we think it's linear with whatever's going on with you know the live action movies and TV shows, and now he's kind of introducing the fact that hey, maybe that last scene there was some time that passed in between, and maybe it doesn't fit with this timeline per se, you know.
I'm curious to see what they're going to do with that for sure. Because Ahsoka Tano again might get a spinoff, so we'll see how they fit her and excuse me, all of these characters into the timelines for
Mm-hmm.
Star Wars. We'll see. We'll see.
Yep.
All right. So. Um, I'm gonna start final thoughts on this episode, rating and all of that. So we talked about it in a lot of detail. We had moments that were not cringeworthy, but moments that were not perfect. Okay. Um, that said, you guys know that even though I like to be, logical, I like to look at the aspects of the episode in terms of acting, cinematography, directing, writing. And that's obviously very important to me into how an episode turns out. I thought those aspects were good. I thought there were moments where the writing wasn't great. I think we mentioned some of those, right? Um, but overall, the way that I rate a lot of these things, maybe just to kind of explain my thought process behind how I rate a lot of the things that we rate, whether it's video games or movies or TV shows, is I definitely consider the aesthetic and the technical aspects of it. Like I said, acting, writing, directing, all that, special effects. But as I mentioned earlier, a lot of Star Wars is how it makes you feel, right? Like that's something that's been important to all of us. Star Wars gives us emotions to a certain extent. It makes us nostalgic. It makes us excited. It makes us feel like kids. It makes us happy to see our favorite characters get their stories fleshed out and told, and to see new characters enter into the canon. And this episode made me feel that. Like I said, this episode made me feel Star Wars, for lack of a better term. Um, and like I said, it's one of the things this episode, the last episode, and to a certain extent most of this season has given me that feeling in a way that I haven't felt since, say, The Force Awakens, which was a mixed feeling. So I'm gonna, long story short, I'm gonna give this episode, for me personally, my rating is a 9 out of 10. It's definitely not perfect. Nothing ever is. It's hard to give something a perfect score. There's only a few things that I've given a perfect score to. Some of those controversial, we won't mention. Um, and Wolfie would have something to say about that.
Yes, he would.
But and then that's the reason why I rated that thing so highly. Like there were moments while I was playing, and I'll mention it briefly. I love The Last of Us 2. There were moments where like I just felt this rush of like excitement, emotion, fear. Like you feel something, and this episode, the last episode, have made me feel that, and I loved it for that. The music was great. you know just everything about it, the way that they use nostalgia and legacy characters worked out really, really well. Like I said, the only issues I have is I want to find out what the heck Boba was doing all this time before he got his armor. And like a couple of gripes with Mando's actions in the episode, even though, like AJ said, I understood his motivation, so that's why it wasn't too bad for me, and it doesn't lower the score much more than that. So yeah, for me, it is a 9 out of 10. It's one of the best episodes of the show so far, if not the best episode of the show so far. I'll have to remove myself from it a few weeks before I can make that distinction. But I loved it, and I can't wait to see where this goes in the next 2 weeks. What about you guys? Eli, what
I
was your opinion of the episode? Or AJ, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was gonna
Go ahead.
say, I'm gonna follow in a similar vein. I'm gonna go 9 out of 10 too. Again, I've really enjoyed it. Um, it's nice to finally see that there's the best bounty hunter in the universe and he doesn't just stand in a corner and look cool. I can actually give credence to that title.
Yeah.
I was still I'm not entirely happy with how they handled the Dark Troopers, but that's relatively minor, even though I didn't quite enjoy the way that was handled. But
Mhm.
it doesn't detract from the entire episode because the entire episode, for better or worse, was really, really good. It was. So yeah, 9 out of 10.
I
You done
mean,
good.
You guys should already know.
I
The corn meter, let me guess, 6 out of 10.
actually, surprisingly, it's better. 7 out of 10.
the
At least
seven.
it's not a failing grade.
Okay,
Well,
so
yeah.
what loses those 3 points for you?
Well, considering that I like it's not that I like to. I have a big problem with small little details like characters being stupid and stuff. But so that really it was there were a bunch of plot holes here, and a lot of weird things happen. Well, not
What did
plot
you
holes.
think? Yeah, what did you think was a plot issue, if not a plot hole?
No, no, no. It wasn't plot holes. It was just
No,
there
I
were
know.
a lot of
Like,
weird.
what was the issue in the plot? I guess. Like, let me give
Yeah.
you one good example. I guess that you thought was kind of a bad issue in the plot, if not a plot hole. Like I said.
Well, like Mando just being stupid and not and doing the same thing over for like 4 times.
Yeah.
It it,
Okay.
it
I agree.
really just. Mm. But
Hmm.
whatever, 7 out of 10.
Okay. 7 out of 10. Um. Okay. So I guess Walt, what's your opinion? Last but not least.
All right. So, one thing I have to say that we didn't mention, this episode was directed by Robert Rodriguez,
Oh yes.
which I'm a huge fan of. He's done movies such as the Desperado trilogy, Spy Kids, Dust Till Dawn, Sin City,
The
Till
Grindhouse.
Machete. You know,
Dawn.
he's done a number of those
Jeez.
those movies which I find to be very, very good. So,
Yeah, he's
you
one of
know,
the best, Hispanic or Latino action directors out there.
yep.
Hmm.
So, that's the one thing that I wanted to put out there because I really, really did enjoy this episode.
Hmm.
Um, I thought, just like you said, it gave me the Star Wars feels, more so than some of the other episodes that we've seen so far. The biggest gripe that I have is that end sequence with the Dark Troopers, and just because of that, I think, just seeing it the one time. Usually, I see it a couple of times, and maybe I have to go revisit it again. But just based on that, I kind of give it a half star less than the previous episode. I did like
Okay. Hmm.
the the reveal of the Jedi in that episode a little bit more. I thought that episode was a little bit more um, cohesive from front to back,
Hmm.
and it
Okay.
did have its problems, but like I said, again, it's one of these things that I'm immensely enjoying the Star Wars episodes on its own. I'm glad that this was not a filler episode,
Yeah, the
which
last
was
two episodes have kind of gone back to what you liked about the first season.
yes,
You could put
and
these two together into a short film, kind of, right?
exactly, and
Like, yeah.
that's where I find my enjoyment with the Mandalorian,
Hmm.
not these side quests and stuff. So I'm glad we're
Hmm.
back to that. But like I said, I just that last sequence with the Dark Troopers and the whole extended sequence of going up the mountain and then the Dark Troopers a la Nazgul style surrounding Grogu, that kind of fell a little flat for me. Um, so you got to forgive me. I don't remember what rating I gave the Jedi on our last episode. I'm just going to give it one half star less than that. I thought it was a great episode,
That's fair.
but
Hmm.
not as good as the one previous. And I
All right.
love, and I know Wolfie's going to give me crap about this. I love that Boba Fett is back in canon, and I thought he was awesome in this episode.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely we're all worried about Grogu at the end of this episode with his little handcuffs on. Like, how can a character be
Yeah,
adorable
that stunk
with
too.
handcuffs? Yeah, those handcuffs seemed like they were similar to what Dooku used to trap Obi-Wan in episode 3, I believe. Remember, he had him suspended in like a energy field. The cuffs
Thank
had no
God.
energy field. I was
Thank
gonna
God they
say like
didn't
her cuffs
use.
didn't fit.
Thank God they didn't use ray shields.
Yeah, definitely.
Ray shields. We're better than this.
How
Oh
could this happen?
That's cringy right there. But whatever.
man. All right. So yeah, again, it was another episode that we've enjoyed. I think that we
We
can
did.
all sort of agree that the last couple of episodes have been some of the better ones, even if they're not our favorites. They've
The
been
high
some of the
point.
better episodes.
My thing is, it's the high point of the season so far. The last 2 episodes.
Yep.
The last 3.
Right, with Bo-Katan, Ahsoka Tano, and Boba Fett all
Yep.
returning
Yeah.
and being part of official live action canon. That's kind of a nerd's dream there, too. And Ahsoka Tano, also her storyline with the daughter and the owl. Also, that was an Easter egg from last week that we didn't mention. The owl is in that forest for those of you that didn't see it.
Mhm.
Watch the episode again. Ahsoka Tano's spirit owl, force owl,
So good.
was there. So
good.
that was pretty dope. But yeah, we had a great time watching this episode. We had a great time talking about this episode. And again, as always, we want to thank our fans out there for bearing with us when it comes to any kind of sound issues or artifacts or errors that we have in the audio recording. We think we've been doing a lot better every single week. If you think that we have been doing better every single week, send us some feedback. And the things that we welcome more than anything else are feedback. Please, if you want to support your favorite podcast crew, the Get Geek crew, like, rate, share, and subscribe to the podcast. We are on all your favorite podcast platforms: Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, Amazon Music, Pandora. I got all of those right this time around, most of them at least.
Yeah, we're pretty much on everything.
Anywhere you can find your favorite podcast, wherever your favorite podcasts are sold, please check us out, like, rate, share, subscribe, send us some feedback. Check us out. Reach out to us on Instagram or on Twitter at Get Geek Podcast. And we appreciate all of that feedback. And yeah, I mean, that's it. Thank you, as always, to our fans out there for enjoying another great episode with us. We had a great time with this conversation. We're looking forward to the next couple of weeks of The Mandalorian, and we know you are too. So, with that said, I got just one thing left to say to y'all out there, and that is, stay geeky, my friend.
May the
Great
force be
Grogu.
with you.
Great Grogu.